And he's not the only one.
Well, in case anybody doesn't know me, I'm Bob Thompson. I'm one of the select board members.
I think that would be useful just to, I know everybody as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Jake Camley, part of the Housing Commission.
I'm Linda Terry, here representing the library.
I'm Jane now, I'm on the planning board.
Scott Badger, planning board.
Bill Terry, planning board.
David Campbell, planning board.
Dick Bennett, planning board, but I'm representing the Conservation Commission this evening.
Jay Henry, I guess, fire department.
Yes.
Jim Langan, road agent for the town of Dallas. Highway department.
Okay, again, thank you very much for being here tonight. I don't think we'll stay the whole hour and a half as allotted, to keep things short and to the point. I just had some key points of where I saw this committee going, and again, I'm open for suggestions and ideas, because that's exactly my first point of this meeting. It's a committee, it's not a board, it's a committee. It's a way of us gathering information, communicating with each other, in light of keeping the capital improvement program, but also in preparation for the master plan that will be developed next year. So some of the information that we gather over these meetings, we do envision using this as a jumping off point for the master plan that we develop next year. But it was really, when we were doing the capital improvement program, we realized that we really didn't look at it. We developed it back in 2014, and really we kind of looked at it occasionally, but never really kind of enhanced it or developed it moving forward and making it a living document, which is really supposed to be what it is. Again, each of you probably did it in your own way, keeping things going, but there was never a document that we could provide to the select board to kind of help in budgeting, or they did it on their own. And as the planning board, we really see it's kind of part of our role is to do that, is to help them. Because this committee, there's no voting requirements. This is an open discussion. It is going to be recorded. These minutes will be, we will keep a record of the meeting, and then we'll share that with everyone here. The video recording will be on our planning board section of the Jackson Flicks. It'll be underneath that tab, so if anybody wants to look at the video again, or anybody asks, that's where the video of this will be displayed. It will not have a separate section within the Jackson Flicks. Planning board. Anybody have any questions? Again, this is probably going to go really fast.
Yeah, I have a question. Should the police department also have a?
They were invited, as the school board
School board, yeah.
was invited to this. So they're missing. We're missing the police and basically the school are the two groups that we don't. And we had talked about the ZBA, but we never got a contact person from them, so they're not represented. So.
And Jim Wasco would normally be available, but he's not.
He's not in town.
He's out of town.
Yeah, he's in Michigan, so he won't be able to go.
Just, and when we made up this committee, we'll probably have subsequent committees to assist us, but this one was intentioned to get input from the town facilities and everybody associated with the town. So you don't see, for example, community members. We don't have Jackson Ski Touring or other folks that, somebody from the chamber, other folks who might be interested in getting input into a master plan, for example. This was intended to really focus on the town. Just, what do we need for our facilities? What are the things that are kind of in that bailiwick as opposed to the broader picture? And there is a broader picture, but we wanted to focus more centrally on the town departments and specifically the kinds of things that the towns has more influence, I guess, on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, when it needs to be done. And you guys know just about everything. I mean, seriously, among the bunch of you know just about everything when it comes to what needs to get done around here. Some of the things just never do get done, and you know what those are too. So it's like this is the time to kind of get them out. Sure.
Anything else?
Well, I'm just gonna say that as it goes on, this committee, I don't think we'll talk money tonight, but the whole thing is driven by money. That's what it's about. Master plan, we try to tag money to all the ideas that come forward. So as we develop these ideas, and then over the next year, we'll try to put money with it. And that's so everybody doesn't come to one town meeting and go, we need money, we need money. We can kind of spread it out so that it's, excuse me, yeah, keep it even. So any one year isn't just spiked.
Right, and also it allows us the opportunity to know what other needs are in the town. Because right now we all sit on our own little committee or board and area of the department, and what's going on in the bigger picture, what's a priority for the library versus what's the priority for the school, what's the highway, what's the fire. I mean, we all sit in our own little boxes, and the goal of this was to kind of open that box up to allow everyone to kind of share it and prioritize, because things that you're working on probably impact the highway, and you're working with them directly, but for us to put that in the capital improvement program really is, it's part of the whole bigger picture.
And I'll just say that as someone here representing the select board, I love what you said, and I'm going to define money as the same thing as taxes. And that is a responsibility that we have on the board that we don't take lightly. We're not the only ones. We're not blind as to the demographic makeup of this town. There are people that live in this town that no way could any tax increase ever impact them personally. They have fat wallets and deep pockets. And then there are others that tax rates increases are critically important to. Critically. And we serve everybody. And we just ended up with a supermajority of support for the largest construction project that's ever taken place in this town, and we're aware of that too. And so that just increases the importance of all the things that David and Bill are talking about when they're talking about developing a knowledge base collectively, and when they're talking about lining these things up so that we can continue to invest in our town, but prioritize the return on investment that we're making long-term versus short-term. And so everything that comes together in this committee and becomes part of the finished product of the work and the capital improvement plan is going to be highly important to probably all of us, but I mean, with my blinders on as a select board member, really, really important to provide me with the guidance I need to understand what it is that is, how things should be prioritized. How do we determine need? How do we prioritize? How do we manage the budget? It's all about helping us understand how.
Yeah, Bob, I think that's right. And the other piece that I'm thinking about is there are some things that might be on the plate that we need to identify even if we can't afford them. And the reason I think we need to do that is because there's also the opportunity potentially for grants for some of the things that we might want to do. Or there might be a deep pocket somewhere that, as you suggest, there are a couple in town that might be able to fund something, or that we might do fundraisers for, and get behind, because there are folks who will look at taxes and go, no way, but somehow they figure out how to put another $50 into the basket when it gets passed around. So I think, yeah, we always need to have the blinders on when it comes to taxes. I don't think we need to have them on when, for example, you need a new piece of equipment that you're afraid to ask for because we just ended up having a big construction project and we're going, oh my God, that's an awful lot of investment. But you may need another investment that is an additional, that doesn't make any difference because you have a new building. Same thing with the highway department, oh yeah, we got a brand new truck, oh, okay, yeah, but that didn't take care of the potholes on such and such road.
Well, I'm gonna ask, because I'm the new guy here, so I'm learning, what would fall into the CIP? So, I guess is it,
Long-term road construction.
so like bridges,
Yeah.
road improvements?
Yeah.
It's usually,
If I had 2 or 3 things
it's usually
rattling around my
that,
head.
those big items.
The way the RSA is written,
Yeah.
it should be anything that's not in the annual budget.
Okay.
And it should be, and this is how old the RSA is, it should be an amount more than $10,000.
I think I got that covered. No problem.
Which means just about anything
Yeah.
these days.
In today's world.
You better have a zero to that. Nothing.
But that seriously, that's what the RSA says.
Yeah.
It says,
Okay.
something that's more than $10,000 and something that would not be handled
Right.
in the annual budget. So it shouldn't be an operational kind of thing. And so, if you need a new blade for a truck and that's a $5,000 item, yeah,
I'm thinking 3 new bridges, new intersection.
Yeah, exactly,
sidewalks.
exactly the kind of
Yep.
thing. And how do we get those set into, the 10-year plan that they're talking about? I think we have a bridge that's on the 10-year plan currently. Yeah, just the one.
Well,
And it looks like it's 10 years that we're looking at for that one.
Yeah.
We want brand new ones, not just repair ones.
I was going to mention that for the library, there are a number of trusts that are managed by the trustees of trust funds, and these are all designated use funds. For example, the March Fund is for maintenance and improvements, but at the moment it has a balance of somewhere north of $350,000. So to the extent we're able to tap those funds for something that's on our wish list, that won't affect taxpayers at all. So, but still, we need to have those identified, because if we do tap the funds, we need warrant articles if we're taking from principal.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is that this, it's nice if you mention stuff that your department needs, but also if you can look around and say, gee, he's not going to tell you, but we need one of those. Conservation Commission, I think, has a bunch of stuff that they keep on not talking about, as a for example. And I don't know if you're going to bring them forward, but if you see something, say something. It's that kind of thing. It shouldn't be just for your own stuff. Your own stuff first, but if there's something you think about, it's about the town. We're a community. You guys are the guys who hold things together for everybody, and you're representing the folks who do that. A much larger group. We have about, I don't know, among the bunch of us, we have maybe about 60 odd people or so that are members of the community, if we include all the folks who were supposed to be here today.
That's correct.
Yeah, and those are just the representatives of the larger community. So this is their first shot. So. You guys, go. Anybody want to start?
I sent you, yeah, because I did send everybody the capital improvement program that was submitted to the select board. We did make copies for everybody, unfortunately. So that's, and there was also a spreadsheet, to your point, there was a spreadsheet attached to that I sent that kind of outlines what we do. So to some of your programs and projects that you're talking about, the bridges and the roads.
You should have one old one. I did one for the selectmen.
I've seen a few of them, I did not.
I did one with this, a 10-year plan,
Other things.
2012, 13. Yeah, somewhere around then I did a 10-year road capital improvement plan. So you should have that somewhere there. That was a big 4 or 5 page.
Yes.
When we went over pavement and shimming and box cut and all that. That was a capital improvement plan I did for the selectmen specific.
Right.
'Cause I've done this 3 or 4 times. I've done it with just for the selectmen 10-year plan at least twice in 20 years. Me and Dick sat down once, I don't know, there was talk of this meeting coming up and me and him talked, and then I don't think it ever went anywhere. So I've done some of this with him, which is over here. And I know in '05 there was a big one done. 2005 there was a big one done. Remember there's some paperwork over there on it. And Arthur was still alive and there was all kinds of stuff talked about that. You guys went up to Black and had a big round table up there, remember that?
No, that was, yes, we have a copy of that, 2004.
So, yeah, like I said, I've done my own, whether it's for the selectmen or for Julie for the town report, which is basically the same updated information I got for you now. So, whenever you get something on.
Take it.
All right, let me give you these. So, there's a couple specific,
Yeah, it's multicolored for us.
yeah, whatever it is, it went in the front. I'm not very good with paperwork, so bear with me, my spelling's probably horrible. So there's a couple of different topics. It's Tyrol repeater radio system. Does anybody not know what that is? Everybody know what the radio system on top of Tyrol's pier is? You might know. So I'll go over that. That's the page I think I just gave you, maybe. So this is vehicles, which one fire truck is $1 million now. The one that we just bought, the 700, went up 200,000 in 2 years.
And all the fire trucks are replacements, correct?
Yeah.
No, we're gonna have another fire department built with 3 more bays, so we got 7.
That's me, no.
One more page.
So make sure people know that it's not additional, it's replacement.
This is like equipment, expensive equipment. Everything we do is not cheap. I mean, it's $10,000, up 8, 9, 10,000 bucks just for a radio for fire engine, so.
Or the trade-in value for the existing vehicles? Trade-in?
We're trying to sell a fire truck right now, and it's a tough one.
It's because we have it.
They don't.
so long.
They don't.
What's the year on that? 80?
So, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute.
of these are on this,
Yeah,
so.
some of this is same info that you've had in the past. So I'll just kind of quickly, one of the pages, it might be yellow, capital improvement plan for Tyrol repeater. So Tyrol, you go to the top of the mountain, then you go to the top of Thorn Mountain where the Tyrol ski area used to be. We have a radio tower, solar facility, small shed basically with 3 radios in it. That short story is you call 911, it goes to Carroll County Dispatch. Carroll County calls us on this through that radio tower. It goes up there, then it bounces down to this. And then when I talk, it bounces back to Tyrol, which then bounces back to Carroll County Dispatch. So it's Bartlett Fire, Jackson Fire, Bartlett Jackson Ambulance. So there's a shared expense with that between Bartlett and Jackson.
Do the police use the same facility? Or
What's that?
Do the police use the same facility, or do they
Fire
have a different one?
They're on, Carroll County Sheriff's Office has a whole separate radio system for that. So that's a shared expense between Bartlett Fire, Bartlett, Town of Bartlett, Town of Jackson. Bartlett Jackson Ambulance is the free ride on that. Jackson taxes, Bartlett taxes is still paying for the radio system that Bartlett Jackson Ambulance uses. So, I had a discussion with Oscar on Electronics today about the next 10 years, because usually the capital plans I've ever done don't go beyond 10 years. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Right now, the radio system's fine. We don't foresee any drastic issues. We have a budget in the operations budget that maintains it if we break a radio or wind blows a tower over or whatever. Last year at town meeting, we changed the fund and took it out of my regular budget and put it in an expendable trust fund. So if we don't use the $7 grand to fix a radio or fix a solar panel or buy a battery, then that money stays there for the next year in case we have it. And then if you could build that account up from now on, then we'll have a little bit of play money in case something big happens or an upgrade of some sort. So it's so hard to tell what's going to happen. We might be working off cell phones in 5 years. This old school analog technology is still the most reliable versus these aren't reliable enough for emergency purposes. But who knows where we're going to be in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years. You could see a minor upgrade that within getting close to 8-10 years from now and spend 50 grand. You could spend 100 grand if you needed to do a major upgrade and totally change the system around. So that's kind of, there's no good answer on a money number for that, but that's kind of that is a big item that's always on our list.
How are we doing with Bartlett sharing?
Fine.
It's working?
Yeah, no, they got 2 choices. Well, Jim's about the fire chief right now. They got 2 choices. They either fix it, they either pay to fix it, or they're not gonna have a radio. Because the reason he asked that, many years ago, when we upgraded that system in 90, 91, there was fire chiefs at the time didn't play all that well in the sandbox all the time, didn't play well with selectmen at that time. So there was some things, the radio system needed to be fixed and changed, and Bartlett didn't budget for it. Not blaming Bartlett completely, but fire chiefs at the time just weren't cooperating, and Jackson ended up building the solar facility, and Bartlett didn't budget for it, so that's kind of why Dick brought that up. So in the way past, we had some little bit of issues there, but nobody specific to blame, I guess.
With the upgrades, are you saying that it would cost a couple $100,000 to upgrade it? And you're,
I mean,
this is half.
if we went to a total different simulcast microwave link system, who knows what it would cost?
No, I'm just trying to figure out if your arithmetic assumes
It's-
50% or 100% of the cost.
Oh, that was full cost,
Okay.
so then we'd pay half of that.
We did.
But-
Okay.
But those numbers are extremely rough,
Right.
extremely rough. I don't predict any, I hope we don't have to do anything for 10 years, so I don't think there's much at this point for us to dive into on this. I mean,
But just carrying through your idea though, if we're doing a $7,000 per year now? at this
correct,
point?
but that includes any repairs.
Right, and so but when you have repairs, are they like 2,000, 4,000?
Batteries can be a couple grand,
Okay,
buy a new radio can be $1,000, $2,000.
so you're
Buy an
figuring
antenna could be $1,000,
a
$2,000.
couple of 3,000 a year,
Some years,
probably.
some years we've spent 5 grand, some years we've gone 4 or 5 years without spending a penny.
Yeah, okay. So.
Every 5 years, we gotta buy batteries.
So, based on what I hear you saying, though, you might be able to get away with spending, in 10 years, you're collecting 70,000 of revenues, but you might spend maybe half of that,
Maybe, yeah.
assuming,
And then an upgrade could be double that or triple that.
so, and this is the kind of thinking, I'm thinking that we need to work through, because if we truly think that we're gonna have to do an upgrade, it's gonna cost the town 50, 60, 70 grand as our share, then understanding whether or not 7,000 is the right number to be working with on an annual basis into this fund, or if it should be 9,000, you know,
And we talk about that at budget year.
yeah, and so, I mean, we're just talking a couple of grand, and it sounds like a small sum, but on average, over 10 years, that's another 20 grand, and puts it right into the ballpark of being able to cover the handle, as opposed to being, you know, 30,000 short. And that's, I guess that's the kind of thing we're trying to think through as we're doing this, is how can we make smart choices that won't have large impacts that still get our jobs done. That's just one item, but that's a good example.
Yeah. So that could be a big one if something major happened, but the normal, let's see, couple items that are kind of specialty equipment, a couple of them are bigger money items than the bottom. It's the white one says 2025 CIP, radio replacement. So radios are gonna be a big expenditure for us here at some point soon. What happened back in 2005, the state had a huge grant for the entire state of New Hampshire, every fire department. I think 1 year fire department, 2nd year PD, or 1st year PD, 2nd year, they basically, the state, the feds bought every single radio for every single fire truck in the state and every single police cruiser. It was a big deal. So in 2005, we got all brand new radios, up to date, portables. So we haven't had any radio issues as far as purchasing. We bought a few portables, but and this doesn't include pagers. Like, this is kind of considered a pager, even though I use it as a pager, but I can talk on it. We haven't had to pay for much for 20 years. So those radios have basically become obsolete. We're still in good shape. I haven't had a lot of breakdowns, so we're hanging tight. We've been trying to buy a portable every few years. The new truck got a new radio. But we're gonna be spending some money here in a few years. And I've got, a radio for an engine is $8,000. You know, the radios for, say, the pickups, so the forestry truck are less money, $3 grand a piece. Portable radios, we need 12 of them. that's $36,000. So basically, the short story is we've got an expenditure coming up at some point for 61 grand. Now, maybe we can, whether that happens over the course of a few years, or whether we do it all at once, it's to be determined. But I planned on buying one radio this year. I bought one last year. I put off this year's. I'm probably gonna buy it. I'm probably gonna have to buy it next year. Just so I try to stay in a rotation on expensive stuff. So, you know, you try to buy a radio every few years, or SCBA or something every whenever. Gear, we try to buy 2 sets of gear every year.
So
Just it
these
doesn't
costs
get
are
us-
recurring then? So the engine, like engine 6 or engine 7, you're anticipating next year
Correct.
at 8 grand. You're saying that that's only good for 2 or 3 years?
No, that once you buy the radio, it'll be good.
Oh,
But,
10, 20.
oh, okay.
These
Yeah,
are
the radios we
radios
got,
you're
20.
replacing right now that were part of that 2005 major state.
In 2004 and 5, due to 9/11, they had an educational moment, we'll call it, of interoperability problems. So this new wave, the government passed out a whole ton of money to almost every department and funded all new radio equipment that had hundreds of channels. I can talk to anybody in the state now in the fire department. My radio was full of channels from the seacoast to Colebrook. And that was the reason for it. The problem was, like Jay said, and Bartlett was literally going through this at the same stage because we had the exact same radios. They come to the end of their life and they start dying fast. And then you're left radioless.
Every domino.
And we just spent $32,000 this year on 10 radios, portables. And Bartlett's gonna look to spend another $32,000 next year for 10 more portables, and 5 more after that, and in a 3-year cycle, we should have all new portables. The problem with that is, in another 20 years, we're gonna go through the same cycle.
Right.
So,
In a couple of years, the portable radio side, which is 36 grand, I'll be asking for that all at once, because we don't wanna mix. You want all the portables to be the same, so they're the same charges, everybody knows how to run them. It gets tough to mix them, and then they change the model and stuff. So that's gonna be coming soon. I'm hoping, we have an expendable trust fund for fire equipment that I'm in pretty good shape on most of my other equipment, so I'm hoping to, over the course of 2 or 3 years, to save a bunch of that money, build it up, and use it for that. We'll see how that goes.
Any
But it's-
grants out there?
We have tried a bunch of grants in Jackson. I've had 4 or 5 different people try for grants and have had no luck. No luck whatsoever.
We don't get that.
Is that the same case in
We're
Bartlett?
small.
Uh,
For you guys?
we tried for the radio grant and did not get one, so the town, we were going through the grant to cover all our radios at once, which probably would have put us around $80,000, I think. That did not fly, so the safer route, they just broke it up over 3 years and decided to do it in chunks. It would just turn it around quicker and fold it into the budget.
Yeah, it seems that we don't do very well as small
Right.
towns
Grants are getting very hard.
in getting grants.
We don't
period.
understand it.
So,
We've tried an AirPack grant 3 times and still haven't got it, and that's one of the easier grants to get. So that's kind of a real, it's a big item, you know, it's $60,000 worth of radios and that, you know. AirPacks is another big item, and AirPack is 9 or 10 grand now. The last few years, we've rotated over 2 or 3 years and bought a few, so we're in pretty good shape. But down the road, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we'll be spending 50 grand, 75 grand, 100 grand, in that range. That's a big item. The bottom of that page, special equipment, that is within my budget, which I buy, just to give you, I just put this in here to give you an idea of what we do within the budget. So when I say gear, it's basically pants, jacket, boots, gloves, helmet. That's like $5,000 to outfit one firefighter, $5,000. We buy 2 sets a year. We might not necessarily buy a helmet every year, but we buy basically pants and jacket for sure, 2 sets every single year. So we stay in a rotation, we never get behind. Back in, I don't know, 2000 something, we were in such bad shape on gear that we spent $50,000 in 2 years replacing all the gear. So it's working good by staying in that rotation and within our budget. Same thing with a bunch of other stuff, thermal imagers, gas detectors, all that stuff. We try to keep within our regular budget, but I just figured I'd throw that in there so you kind of got an idea of what some of our gear costs. It's not cheap.
Bob, do you know what percentage the fire department has of our total town budget? Is it a large percentage?
I can answer that
Yeah, equipment-wise, it's substantial, you know, when you look at the heavy equipment and
Yeah.
everything else, and I think a general overview of what Jay is sharing is that he is very experienced, as are several other departments, you know, the highway department as well, trying to foresee need. Because when you turn around and say, we need a new $1 million fire truck next year, good luck. And so we are expendable trust fund heavy compared to some towns. And it's a way to lessen the tax impact so that you're not spiking taxes. And so foreseeing the need and getting, whether it's equipment or radios or receivers or repeater radios and planning for the future at the top of tie roll, you know, spreading that out is what can lessen the tax impact. It's amazing how one thing for $50,000 put into the tax rate on a year has, I won't say negligible, it's all major investment, but $50,000 on 1 year's overall, it is negligible. You don't really feel it in your tax rate like you will from everybody deciding they need that $50,000 widget at the same time. And I think that's really the crux of this, and that's why we ran into an issue when we were building the fire station and figuring out how the design and engineering study was going to be funded, and we kind of took a year off of contributing to some heavy equipment, and we understood that that was a tricky game to play, because that doesn't remove the need for the equipment. When these trucks get to a point where they're more in maintenance than, you know, that to maintain than they would be to replace, and you haven't seen ahead, then you're costing the taxpayer money in a general way. And so that's why fire departments, highway departments, they know how to do this. That's part of their job, and to a lesser degree law enforcement too, although they don't have nearly the equipment needs. But whatever the equipment costs, if you have to have it, it has to be ready to go at the moment you need it, and you need to be trained to use it and all of these things.
And plus a fire truck takes a while to build.
Yeah. So when you ask about percentage, what I will say is Jackson, the selectmen, the taxpayers, the department, everybody's done an incredible job. If you look at 28 employees, granted most of them are part-time, 28 employees, $5 million worth of trucks, at least $1 million worth of equipment when you start jaws of life, ladders, hose, gear, air packs, thermal imagers, gas detectors, everything that's in that building. And then you add the building, now we got a new building, but you add the building, you look at that cost, 28 employees, we got a pretty small budget, a couple $100,000, you know. So the percentage is, I think, is considerably low to the entire town budget for what it is and what you get out of it. I mean, we're doing really well. We've got 28 employees on a fire alarm activation at 3 in the morning for a place we go to all the time. We still get 7 or 8, 10 people show up. So we're, you know.
Yeah, I asked the question because I think you guys do a good job. I think you guys do a good job. I think everybody here in town does a good job. And then the question I have is, how can we do it better?
Yeah.
You know, and some of the things that you do to make that work for you are based on your mechanisms or methods that you've learned over the years. Or if you're learning, if you haven't done it, I know like the Housing Commission, they're brand new, so they don't really have a lot of history to be able to draw from other than stealing from other folks who've had experience. So there's a big differential there in terms of having that kind of ability to know how to do stuff. Flip side of that is that if there are ways that we can figure out so it's not as hard a task to do as what we're doing right now. Because I think some of the things we do sometimes we do because that's the way we've always done it. Or like you say, I'm putting off this for 2 years so I can do that 3 years from now. And is there a better way to make that happen so that things that you really needed this year, you can get this year, instead of putting it off. And I'm famous personally for putting things off that I need. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, I can live another year without that. You know, it's like, okay. And instead I'll put the money in a savings account and hopefully eventually take care of that. So I'm familiar with the style, but sometimes it's not the right thing because I may not be doing the right thing for myself either. So I kind of look in the mirror when I'm talking about this.
So my final page, and then I'll get out of your hair. It's basically vehicles, which crazy expensive, as everybody knows. And you think buying a Subaru is expensive. Hang on. So basically, I do this often, just as part of the budget. You know, we're always looking at it. The selectman, Julie, now they have a capital plan, 10-year plan, right in the town report every year. So you've seen this probably, very similar. Forestry truck, you could see us possibly buy a new forestry truck, 2029. We recently acquired an old highway truck, which is working out extremely well, using it, especially this year. And it's helping actually with the other expensive fire trucks, but maybe not having to use them quite as much. 22 engine 6, that's the next truck to replace, 2036. We go 30 years with a fire truck. I think somebody might have asked that. NFPA's recommendation is every 15 years. We shouldn't keep a truck more than 15 years. Because we're a small town, we don't use it as much, we take care of them, we invest a lot of money in upkeep. And so they last longer. The truck that we just bought, it's the one that it replaced was 34 years old, and it's still in good shape. So maybe 2036 or so, you might see $1 million fire truck.
But that money, and I think, Bob, you raised this when we were talking about this capital improvement, you're already funding that.
In the expenditure trust fund,
That's
Yeah.
already,
we contribute.
it's not $1 million.
That's right.
But what I will say is it bounces, the budgets bounce. Like, we'll go a bunch of years where people put $100,000 away for fire trucks, which would cover us, when it come time to buy it, you'll be able to pay cash for it. And then you have years where budgets tighten up and they cut it. There was discussion last year or the year before of cutting that line item,
Yeah.
dropping it to 50 grand instead of 100 grand. So that doesn't necessarily, it's always
Right.
changes.
But I'm just saying that we're already planning on that future purchase.
Exactly, and
We
so
may not have 100% of it.
the engine we just took delivery on, all of a sudden today, it's $200,000 more, Jay just
Correct.
happens to mention. So it's no guarantee that you've got everything, but you've got enough so that when you add money to take you over the top, you're not spiking tax rates.
But with someone starting, because we bought a new engine, we're a little bit starting from scratch that last year. We got a little bit of money in there, but not like that. We don't have a big account because of the purchase.
Oh, so the fund for the trust fund is for all engines?
The
You don't
fund is for
It's
all
not an
engines,
individual
yes.
again in the trust fund.
So you take the sheet I give you, it's got the pickup in there, forestry truck, engine, 2202, which is kind of a utility / rescue truck, smaller truck. So it's all of them put together equals 1.3 million. As of 2024, there was 182,000 in there. So rough numbers, we need at least 66,000, 67,000 a year for 20 years to maintain our schedule.
Okay, so you spent, because we originally, last year, you had about 600,000 in that fund. So that went to spend on your new engine.
Yeah, we paid for it in, I can't remember if we paid for it in 23 or 24.
Heavy in 24.
I'd have
It
that.
was 24, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Because I had the forestry and the pickup as a separate line item on the capital improvement on my document. I have it separate. I have a replacement of fire truck for $1 million. The 2202 is or 02.
Well, one of the things that screwed things up is in the last 5 or 6 years with all the emissions changes, the price of trucks has spiked drastically, like triple what a regular Subaru or F-150 spiked. So it messed with the numbers a little bit, so the numbers are definitely rough.
Okay.
For example, we bought, the new truck was 700,000. 2 years later, it's 800,000, almost 900, and it takes twice as long to wait to build it.
Yeah, you made a comment which I think is important and relative to what we're doing here. And that is we're trying to plan. And when you plan something, the whole idea is to say, yeah, we have expenses that we're gonna have every year. And the intention is to make sure that we meet our plans. When you set out a goal to do something, if a select board sits down and says, oh, geez, those people put together this, look at this ridiculous numbers they put together. And if it's a solid plan and you look at it and you say, this looks right, it puts a lot of pressure on the select board to say, we put together a plan. This is what it's going to cost. This is what our tax base is going to be. These are the things we prioritize, we said we need, and we need to fund them.
Well, I would expect you to review that plan every year to see whether it's still,
And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, if all of a sudden all the parts for fire trucks are on a 40% tariff, and your 1 million thing up to 1.3 million, then we really have to think about our budget for that.
Just be happy we don't have a ladder truck, that's like 2.2.
So I think it's almost a good thing that we let off with Jay's presentation, because it's the same way we handle our highway department needs, exactly the same. And so that's why it's so important that the the select board, I'm trying to get away from saying selectmen. The select board has liaisons with each department, and that's one of the things that their select board representative liaison should be working with them on is looking to the future and understanding needs, understanding that radio technology may triple our need in 10 years, we don't know that, but we can plan as, we do the best job we can at planning for today and foreseeing those needs. And so just as Jay is laying out how he plans for his heavy equipment needs, for his radio needs, for his turnout gear needs, so does Jimmy.
And that's, to Linda, your point, that is the thing on the capital improvement. We didn't update it. And you mentioned that this is a 10-year plan. This is gonna be a rolling 10-year plan.
Well, this is the first time we've had this committee.
Correct.
So this should make it a living document.
Correct.
As you said earlier.
Right. So when you're saying like something that, the 10-year plan technically goes from 2024 to 2034. But you have things here from 2038, 40. The document will eventually get
Oh,
to
it'll
that.
grow. It'll
No, I mean,
change.
this document will grow every year. We're not waiting 10 years to create a new one.
Oh, correct.
Okay, so that's why we want
Right.
all of the information every year so this document can be updated to that. Because the flip side is, technology can be so different that it's not that expensive. We think always technology goes up, but as satellite technology enhances, your radio, that tower, may not even be needed.
No,
I mean, it could be all satellite technology at all, and no towers are required.
nothing's gonna get cheaper though, that's for sure.
And reviewing it on an annual basis is how we justify what we ask the voters to contribute into the expendable trust fund.
Right.
And so that's kind of always the way that it's been at the select board. And so it doesn't, we don't have to build anything new from
Right.
scratch every year. We just go back and review it and see where we're at and how much do we have for the next truck we need. And do we need to add more, should we add less? And it's the same with the highway department.
Yep.
And those are big ticket needs. That's where our heaviest equipment sits, is in the highway department and the fire department. So, my hope is that we end up with all of our collective needs identified, and then, we can get to dollars versus taxes, and I differentiate the need. It's like, hey, spend. If it's out of your trust fund, that's great. But if it's going to impact the taxpayer, then I probably want to look a little closer at it. But when I know that the Affordable Housing Commission has done a job of kind of researching what their best needs are that they can identify today over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it doesn't come out of left field for me when I'm trying to finalize a budget. And that does happen from time to time. All of a sudden, we hear in November that somebody needs something in March, and that's when it really becomes challenging to manage a budget so that, in fact, I'll tell you right now that the people that do our books and manage budgets in towns are telling you, you really should hope that every year your town tax needs increase between 2.5% and 3%. And if they don't, you're gonna find a 6%, 7% year down the road. And that's when people are gonna notice the difference. So we want to manage a slow, steady, stable increase, because the cost of living goes up, and hopefully that includes paychecks. It includes paychecks of people that work for the town, and it includes most of our paychecks for those of us that are still working. And in that sense, we can be, hopefully presenting something that feels a lot more flat than spiky.
Well, at least we don't have to discuss a new fire station.
But we need to get the school here and.
That's right,
Yes.
that's
And that was one of the advantages of the planning board to kind of run this committee, is because we can ask the school board to come to this, because they're part of our capital
Yeah.
improvement program. Hopefully they'll show up next month at our next meeting, so. But we don't want the details, this was great, this really did help, but I know your improvements, your programs aren't gonna need as much money as this, but it's really, again, not necessarily money, but it's what your plans are.
That's
So-
ideas.
And that's what even, for the library, it's like, what do you see your needs in the future?
And these are specifically not recurring expenses that take place over the course of a year, this is long-standing expenses.
Right.
Okay.
Like, if you
So,
want the town to buy property to build your homes.
Did we
that would
take
be,
that $15,000 for the housing commission and put that in expendable trust fund
Yes.
when that came in? So
Yes.
you're working on expendable trust fund already, that's almost like half the battle. Where the town says, this is worthy of starting an expendable trust fund, and then you go back and say, well, now, rather than 15, we need 35, because we're gonna do this, this, and this, and this is the land and all, and figures look really concrete, and then the voter can get wrapped around understanding that need.
Yeah, when I asked for 50, I couldn't tell them what the 50 was for. They said, no,
could be either.
Depends when you get it.
it's a good number, you know.
Pizza. Right, we talked about it.
For really good pizza.
Yeah. So, and that's why you do want school at the table, and I guess at a point in time where we were working on the master plan, we just basically said, well, we've asked and we've asked and we've asked, and they're too busy with other higher priorities, therefore this must not be much of a priority, and therefore we tended to kind of zero it out for a while there, like I guess they don't need anything because we're not hearing from them, which may or may not be true.
And they likely have a lot of needs, but they are kind of, it appears, if I read the article this morning properly, they're kind of deep into things that they're doing right now.
That's correct.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be somebody's _1 priority just because it's a high priority for us, but I mean, so that we can move forward in a measurable, responsible way.
Correct.
It's so helpful to know these things.
Okay, the Conservation Commission is looking to use as a consultant, I'm trying to get it, geomorphologist.
Yeah.
Hydrogeomorphologist, somebody up at the falls who can advise us on how to stabilize the bank erosion that's been happening. Well, there are big events, but it's gonna happen over the next years. I would say in 10 years, we'll have another major event. Maybe we won't make the New York Times, but it'll still be quite an event. And they would like to bring in somebody that can advise about how to stabilize what we have there. And,
And then develop a plan.
and develop yes, the other part of it is to a stewardship plan for the falls, flood erosion, bank stabilization, parking, porta potty, ADA access, and, just the general work up there. It's been done by volunteers up till now, who've done a great job. But it may be time to, get some professional help in there and really get some work done.
Yeah, the last time, I think the Conservation Commission looked at that and had somebody professionally come in was 2013. And that was George Howard, came in and did a report to the Conservation Commission that created some of the plans that we currently have. But if his recommendations to stabilize the West Bank, none of those things were followed through on, other than we canceled parking up on Valley Cross Road was one of the things they recommended to reduce foot traffic coming down off of there because of the area by the bridge, particularly with people used to just crawl down the edge. There were, Jay, you put in one of the stairs.
A couple.
And you put actually two, you put one for each of the parking areas. And then the AMC was employed to put the uneven steps that are alongside the fence. So a lot of that did help to stabilize some of that, but the actual bank edges, there was a whole process that was described back then, and back then there was literally 30 more feet of, yes, there was 30 more feet of trees and dirt and roots that have been totally worn away because the work wasn't done. A lot of that had to do with Irene coming through. I know you ended up dumping some rock in there, which helped stabilize some of the area.
Yeah, we did a couple spots, so we had to stabilize the bridge abutment, and
Yeah,
there was a bunch of stuff.
yeah,
I know where you can get some big boulders.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we've done some things, but it's not been, it didn't follow the kinds of things. Bartlett had a similar study done. They obtained several $100,000 grant and ended up, being able to use outside resources to do the work because they followed through. There are things we can do if we think about them, say we'd like to get them done, and follow through with them.
And an expansion on that, town-wide, we should have a water discussion, how to save the water that we have. It's gonna become more and more important. So as we develop more of the land with house lots, and we don't have sewage system in town, so it's going to be septic systems, individual septic systems, and we've got a plan for that. And what happens along the river, the Wildcat, and all of it, Great Brook. We can't just let it go. Water can't just be, oh, it's always been there, it'll always be there. And it won't be.
Yeah.
That's my two. That didn't even come from the Conservation Commission.
Well, if you look at the falls now, the level is the lowest I've ever seen in
It's a trick.
11 years we've been here.
Anybody driven by Saco Pond lately?
A mud pump.
There's nothing there.
Really?
The sock goes right up from Willie House to the pump. There's no river.
Yeah, I just saw somebody drawing water from the fire pond.
day.
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Valley Cross.
It's really
Is that allowed,
Is that right?
shocking.
What?
to pull water out of the,
We don't necessarily own the pond, I mean,
I saw somebody there last week doing something.
yeah.
It was a
I mean,
commercial,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could dig deep into the code and maybe find some kind of rule that says you can't take water out of a fire pond, but we don't necessarily own it. The only town-owned pond is the big pond. The others are all privately owned. We
well, I'm
have
sure,
easements
I'm
for
sure
some
this
of them.
guy didn't ask for any permission.
No, probably not.
Technically, I don't believe you can own water according to the state.
Well, correct.
You can't own the water. You can you can own the land underneath, you can own the land around. You cannot
You can own the access to it,
You
right?
can own the access to it, but you can't own the water.
Once you build it.
So here's my question then for some of the Conservation Commission stuff. Jay, you have done a lot of stuff to make things on the falls, and I think also Prospect Farm, you've done some stuff in your capacity in the highway. Are there things that are on your plate that the highway department can help on? For example, I know the condition of those parking areas right now have drainage issues that a regular car is gonna scrape the bottom with.
The highway department has been really helpful about developing more parking up at Prospect Farm. They've done a, great job of, being there.
Yeah.
They have, knotweed mitigation,
Yeah,
which is every place in town, I mean, it's everywhere. But, they've been very helpful.
So at
Yes.
6:40, David,
I'm just about to wrap it up here.
I'm wondering, you've probably captured the essence of what's happened here in the minutes.
Yes,
We do have another meeting scheduled.
yes,
And what's the date for that meeting?
October 9th.
October 9th. What should we be doing between now and October 9th as members of this planning board forum?
Well, I'm gonna try to reach out to the school board and the school system, because to me, that's the the third largest organization in this town. When you took the fire, the sound, that, I know it's not your budget, but they're an important part of this, and
Largest budget.
yeah, from a tax consideration, they are the largest.
okay.
So,
But
yeah.
different tax system,
right.
but I think for them not being in the capital improvement program and not being here, I mean, we need to know what's going on.
It's their responsibility to be here.
Yes, but,
I'm saying that to the camera.
yes. I did know Melinda was not available, so I knew she was not gonna come, and she's not coming to the next meeting.
Some representative.
James was
Right.
supposed to be. James was the other representative. So it's the two of them, and they actually had two in case one didn't show up.
Well, we know they were tied up at the SAU 9 meeting tonight. Notice hi, Mom. Look at
But yes, that is another thing, and that's why I asked the two of you to be prepared, kind of like, and Jim, I know that you have a big thing, but your report tonight was great, because it really did allow me to update this and kind of keep this going. I know you have a lot of projects, you had talked about that. If you want to share those with me before this meeting,
I
so
can
therefore
try.
I can,
After sitting here and running it through my head, my projects, most of the bigger stuff I have is already on 10-year plans. Like the Dundee Bridge, the next bridge after the one we finally finished, that's already in the state's 10-year plan. When they fund that, that's another question, but it's already rolling, like they updated my estimate. It's already been, we had the estimate through the state, it just got bumps in the spring to 1.1 from just around 900,000, I think. And they'll do that every year. They give me once you're in the program, they'll update the estimated cost.
yeah, I sit on
And they
that.
ask you, do you still want to do this project?
Right. As you
So-
know, I sit on that Transportation
Yeah.
Advisory Committee, which looks at that 10-year plan.
Oh, okay. That's
And just to let you know, bridges is the top priority
Yeah.
for the state. I mean, that is like, forget
Yeah.
about any other project,
I know we're on it just more for funding, but
right, but forget about any other project.
yeah.
Apparently bridges are critical for the state, so I know that's gonna happen. And funding that they're gonna.
Well, that's a good note for me.
Mhm.
That's a good note for me.
Yes, bridges are very
But I know
serious.
there's a lot of, like, I'm involved in a few other projects around town that many entities are involved in, the school being one of them, myself, the historical committee, and the state. So,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah, so,
most of my roads are state, so.
yeah, I know that Bethlehem lost their project that they said they were gonna get. Bethlehem lost it. It was taken off the 10-year plan, so.
It's okay by us. Bumps us up.
No. As far as the grants, as far as the Department of Transportation, as far as Jackson, we're fourth on the list of giving priority to any grant that the state has. We are so low. That's the least, don't even think about getting a grant from the Department of Transportation for the town of Jackson.
Wow.
It's not gonna happen.
Nice.
Yeah. The state doesn't think we need it. So that's what I'd like to do, is prepare for them, and then hopefully the school board. And then at the next meeting, we can talk about if we want to have another meeting, because we had talked about only 2 initial. But if these become positive, it may not become every month coming down the pike. It may be in 2 months. So we may have an October meeting, then maybe a December meeting. because there's nothing tying to this meeting, tied to any of the town meeting. So there's no warrant articles coming out of this committee, there's nothing for the town to approve, the legislative body to approve out of this committee. So,
Are we clear who we feel like we need to hear from?
highway and school, those are the two priorities.
Okay. And regardless of cost, I mean,
Yes.
in anything, and then, you know, later if it's about, well, we get grants or whatever, yeah, we understand that we are a property-rich town and that we have a high per capita income, and those two things can take us right off an eligibility list for a grant-funded project, just those two, but, you know, whatever, but if we understand the comprehensive need, and we've been able to vet it to say, yeah, this is a legitimate need, then we can, I think, it becomes much more concrete for this group to like make recommendations or at least line things up in a capital improvement plan way.
And then we can submit to you
Yeah.
on a regular basis,
Yeah.
maybe on a quarterly basis or something, coming out of this committee, we would report to the planning board, we would update the CPI, and then we can report to you guys and for your budgeting.
Sounds good.
I really appreciate you again showing up.
And just because we didn't mention that you guys are super important, you are super important.
Yes, well, hopefully you'll have something for us. The Housing Commission, I'm really
You're just
excited
not
because of the future.
This big.
Yeah, we're also not prepared, so no worries.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, all.
Sarah, I'll go back online about 20 minutes, okay?
Just enough time to do nothing.
So.
Kathleen will,
I did see your plans, I see your plans. I did see your files, I just, I found this over there.
okay, yeah.
I think so.
Hey, thanks for coming, Jacob.
Of course, take it easy, all.
No, but, no, we're, the,
Do you have any interest for?
sometime we're gonna have a crowning. Yeah, right, it's so, yeah, dust and really is the best time